This is a great honor for me to talk to you today, especially because I'm probably the first person who will talk about Bajkowska Method outside of Poland. Although this method is on Polish market for over 35 years and it has been widely used in Poland for over 23 years, I'm probably the first person who will talk about this method outside of Poland. Before I tell you what the method is, let me tell you what you can achieve with this method. When you work with children in primary schools and you have just one single piano in a classroom, and you have children who don't own a piano at home, so they cannot practice anything at home. The only chance to touch a music instrument is the classroom. And if you work with a small group of children, like 7, after 6 lessons, all the children in this group will first of all understand the musical notation, so they will understand 7 notes. They will be able to read it quite, let's say, easily, and they will be able to play piano while reading the notes. So they will not play piano by ears. So after 6 lessons, all these children will also play piano using both hands. But what is the most important? Children, after 6 lessons, will already compose at least their first music composition. They will write it down on the musical stave, and they will be able to play that music on the piano, just after 6 lessons. If you have a bigger group of children, 14 or 21, then you can achieve the same results, but in a longer time. And if you have a whole classroom, then all the children, after a year, having just 1 lesson per week, without a piano at home, all the children will play piano, will compose at least a single music composition, and they will, let's say, have a great passion to learn music. What you can achieve when you work with children in kindergartens, they can have the same results, but after a longer time. Depending on the age of children, you can achieve the same results after about 5 months. We believe that children are too young to learn musical notation when they are 4 or 3 years old. As far as I heard, the minimum age of children to learn the musical notation is about 5-6 years. With Bajkowska method, even 3 years old children compose their own music by arranging the notes on the stave, and then they play it. Of course, they don't play it perfectly. They need a lot of time to play perfectly on the piano, of course. But the biggest advantage of Bajkowska method is that children don't have problems to read the musical score. Bajkowska method speeds up the process to understand the mathematical rules of musical notation. I will explain it later. If you have individual lessons, when you find a child who shows a little bit bigger music talent, then after a single lesson, the same results are available. So just imagine, you take at least 7 years old child, or any teenager, or any adult, and during the first lesson, this child already understands music notation, knows how to play on the piano, and he or she will already compose the first music composition, a simple one, of course. If you find a talented child who is at least 9 years old, then after 10-20 lessons, this child is able to play quite an advanced music score on the piano. As an example, I'm showing here the Waltz A minor by Frédéric Chopin. If you have a child who has got some talent and owns a piano at home, so she or he can practice it, then after just 10-20 lessons, this child will be able to, let's say, read the musical score, not a vista, but so fluently that he or she will play, Waltz A minor by Frédéric Chopin. Of course, to play it perfectly, Bajkowska method demands the same amount of time as any other method. This means children need to practice the piano to play it well. Bajkowska method just speeds up the process of reading musical notation. And as you probably know, many musical methods teach children to play an instrument at the beginning just by ears. without musical notation. There are many methods that teach children the musical notation, and when children learn the music, then the musical notation makes everything much more complicated and difficult for children, so they don't want to continue the education. So Bajkowska method just speed ups this process. But let me show you some the most amazing results. This is an example of simple music compositions by 5-year-old child and 7-year-old Anne. This is an example what children can compose after 6 lessons or after, I don't know, few months. These 2 compositions had been published in one of the books made by Lidia Bajkowska, the author of the method. It was published in 1992 in Poland. And this method is available for last 23 years. But let me show you some examples from today. I'd like to show you some compositions, some examples created by children after half a year of training with Bajkowska method. I just want to apologize for the low quality of video and audio. I just recorded it a week ago and I didn't have enough time to prepare it better, but I hope you will be impressed. This was just a school concert, that's why it was so noisy. But the conclusion is, every child with Bajkowska method can achieve these results. And I mean 100% of children. In Poland we've got this kind of examples, maybe not so advanced, but even with children with some disabilities, with some illnesses like autism, they achieve the same results. Of course, they need a longer time to achieve that. And let me just mention that these compositions will be published in a book, and I'd like to share this book with you, so everyone here will get this book for free with these compositions, with these scores. So what is the key secret to Bajkowska method? Children process all the information they get. They interpret the whole surrounding reality through their imagination. If we take a toy, a new toy, and give to a child, he or she will immediately find 100 scenarios how to play with this toy. We don't need to give a manual, a guideline to a child how to use a toy, because children use their imagination to process everything around. This is the way how they learn. On one hand, children learn by repeating. Adults do the same, of course. But on the other hand, children process the new information, the new knowledge, through their imagination. And if we allow children to use this technique, to use this natural process of learning something, then we can achieve this kind of results. But, as far as I know, all the music methods teach children the musical notation in the mathematical way. So, we teach children the music notation exactly the same as we teach mathematics, physics, and chemistry. There are some, let's say, rules in mathematics and physics and so on that we just show to children and ask them to remember that and repeat. We ask them to understand these rules. But the problem is that children cannot ask questions about these rules. Why somebody invented this rule in mathematics or physics one way or another way. They would like to process this information through their imagination, because until today, they always learned and just processed everything around through their imagination, because they use it in different kind of games and playing and so on. And suddenly, when we introduce this kind of difficult science to children, we just ask them to remember that and repeat. They cannot do anything with that. I will tell you what I would like to ask as a child if I would have my first music lesson and learn this. Because I always processed everything through my imagination, and everything was a reason for me to find a new kind of game or play, then I would like to ask some simple questions. We've got these two dots on the right of the bass clef. Why do we have two dots? Why are they on the right? Can we have just one dot, please? It would be easier for me to remember that. Of course, it is impossible. So children would like to ask a question, well, can we have these two dots, I don't know, on the left? Or can we have one dot on the left and the second dot on the right? They would remind eyes. It will be easy to remember that. No. Children can only remember that rule and repeat. They cannot ask questions. They cannot interpret this through their imagination. I will show you something even more difficult. Look at this. This is a musical staff. And there is one simple rule. Musical staff is based on 5 lines. This rule cannot be changed. Previously, we've got different systems where we had, for example, 4 lines. Today, we cannot change that. We've got just 5 lines. But the C note is written on the 6th line, below the first one. And sometimes we've got even more lines than 6. So on one hand, we've got 5 lines, and this is a rule that cannot be changed. On the other hand, there are more lines, they are invisible. We pretend that they don't exist, and, well, they are, because children have to use them. So this is a really abstractive subject for children, for little children to understand that. Suddenly, children are forced to think like the adults and understand the language of the adults created for other adults. That's the problem in music education, because this kind of mathematical knowledge just needs time to be understood by children. It cannot be taught quickly. Let me give you another example. If we write a simple melody here, the first melody that a child can see, and we will use the same type of notes, so they will be, I don't know, the whole notes or just half notes. All the notes will look the same. In all European alphabets, we've got over 20 different letters, 20 different signs, and all the signs are different. There are no identical signs in the alphabet. That's why reading is simple, because every sign is different. But here, we've got an abstraction. We've got the same signs, and they mean something different. Moreover, we've got visible lines and invisible lines, and so on and so on. This is another abstraction for children. Children just don't think like we, adults. That's why Bajkowska revolutionized this. What she did? She introduced the so-called personification of musical notes. She introduced this to music education. So, just to explain it, the C note turns into character whose name is Cecile, and this is the green little baby below the first line. The second note, D, turns into, I don't know, Diana. The E note turns into Elizabeth, and so on. This story was published in a book, The Fairy Tale About the Song and Notes, and a short digression, this book became the biggest bestseller in Poland. It was sold just for a few years, between 1992 and 1996. Teachers in Poland used this book for the last 23 years, although this book is unavailable on the market. That's another amazing story. I've seen at least few methods and at least few books with personification of music notes. All the methods I've seen and all the books with personification of music notes, teach children the names of the notes. But they usually don't teach children the music theory. They don't teach the mathematical rules of music notation. As far as I know, the story invented by Lidia Bajkowska is the only story that teaches children the whole music theory at this basic level to read fluently the musical score. This is not the best word, but let's say this is one of the adventures in the story. So there are 7 characters in the story who are the musical notes, and all these 7 characters, 7 children, are used to sit down on 5 stairs. The older child is the higher stair he or she chooses. And the little baby note, Cecile or Celine, was just too little to reach the first stair. So she used to sit down on a little chair below the first stair. And I will tell you what is the final result of this method. When children see this, they perfectly understand that. They don't need to understand the monochromatic, black and white musical score at this stage. They just interpret this knowledge, this mathematical knowledge, through the imagination. It's just a fairy tale. When I talk to people, adult people in Poland who are not musicians, who don't know anything about music, they just learned a little bit of music in their childhood, they tell me that they remember the story about the little Cecile. And they are even able to remind themselves the musical notation thanks to this story, after, 20 few years without any contact with musical notation. I met a person, her name is Maria. She was studying at the technical university and wanted to be an engineer. And at the beginning of her studies, she decided to try to pass the exams to the actors' school. She was supposed to play something on the piano. That's why she took that book from childhood. She reminded herself the musical notation, and she was able to play something on the exams. And today, she is an actress. She plays in a theater in Warsaw. So this proves that the story is so effective that children understand that, and then adults remember it until the end of their lives. But let me tell you another story, the real story. I met Peter, who is a software developer, and he found this book in a pawn shop. So he took this book, gave to children, and after a few days, he was shocked because his children asked him a question: what's the difference between a melody and a symphony? And he was shocked because he couldn't answer this question. So children gave him the answer. The answer was, the symphony is the kingdom of musical sounds. It's the, let's say, I try to translate this into English. This is a United Kingdom of music, or United Music Kingdom. And if you think about this definition, it's the right definition for little children. It's a definition that allows children to process this knowledge through their imagination. Little children don't need to know the Wikipedia or Britannica definition what the symphony is. They can learn it later, when they will be a little bit older. So the conclusion is, if you take this story and show to children in a book, if you just tell this story or show it on a TV, then children learn the musical notes even without a teacher or without a parent. They just learn by themselves. Moreover, they become interested in music notation, in learning that. It's a new world. It's a new fairy tale for them. Of course, a teacher is necessary to translate this fairy tale knowledge into the practical musical notation, and then to teach children how to use this theoretical knowledge when playing an instrument. But I just showed you an examples how effective this story is. And as far as I know, this is the only story that can teach children the complicated rules of mathematical rules of musical notation just by listening to the story. This is another example of the story. Let me introduce you the Professor Bass. there are two professors in the story, a slim one, Professor Treble, and a fat one, Professor Bass. This character once came on a lesson and he took two cakes with him, but he didn't eat the cakes during the lesson. He left them for later. And maybe you cannot see it here. There is a little cloud next to Professor Bass' head, and there are two cakes inside, what means that this person thinks about these two cakes. When children see this picture or hear this story, and teacher can draw this character to children, then children don't ask questions about this, about the real notation, because they just understand that, because they already processed this mathematical sign through their imagination. They already processed that, they already understand that. That's why they don't think about this mathematical, or I don't know, adult language here. That's the revolution in music education. That's the super speed up of the learning process for children. So, what the Bajkowska method is? There are just four parts of the Bajkowska method. The most important one is the so-called conscious listening. We just teach children how they should listen to classic music, or let's say ambitious music. This is a really important step, but let me explain it on the next slide. The second step is the music notation, so is the story. Children just need to hear this story, to listen to the story, to see the story. They can learn the story from a book, from an oral presentation by a teacher, from a TV show, and I believe in the future from a mobile app. In Poland, this book was available on the market until 1996. So teachers and students cannot buy this book from 1997. So what teachers do? Teachers just tell this story during a lesson. That's enough. And that's amazing that this story is told for last nearly 20 years and it is still effective. The second really important step, what makes this method different from other methods similar to this one, is that children need to have some practical exercises, need to practice this fairy tale in different kind of games, team games, quizzes, different kind of acting, theater activities. So what does it mean in practice? Teachers just draw a big music stave on the floor and children behave like the notes. So children turn into the characters of the story and they repeat the whole theoretical, mathematical knowledge which was presented in a fairy tale. So this is some kind of theater activities. They just pretend to be the notes and they repeat that. That's why they let's say, they process this knowledge again through fun, through imagination. There is no mathematics behind that. And the next step is playing the piano. When children learn the theory, then they just need to find the favorite characters. Where do they live on the piano keyboard? That's so simple. So when they found it, they try to play it, seeing some, let's say, musical scores which uses the faces of these children. Instead of black and white notes, we've got faces of the children at the beginning. And the next step is just to, to learn the real monochrome black and white musical notation. And this is simple, because children already learned that. So they don't waste their potential to understand the mathematics behind the notes. They have no stress that the new knowledge is difficult. They already process that in the imagination. I will give you another example for that, a quick one. If somebody would ask you today to learn something from quantum physics, to learn a process, how particles behave, this is a really complicated knowledge. It would take a lot of time for us, adults, to understand that knowledge. Few hours, maybe a few days, to be able to understand that and repeat and use in practice. But if somebody would tell you that the particles in this process in quantum physics behave like you during your last day at high school when you received the diploma, So I don't know, you moved to get the diploma, you took the diploma and came back being proud, being changed. If somebody would tell you that the particles behave exactly the same, you would understand that like that. You wouldn't waste a few hours or a few days to analyze this, to process that, because you have a reference in your imagination, or in this case, in your memory. That's why Bajkowska method is so highly effective, because children just have it like that. The last step is composing the music. This is the key secret to this method. In this process, children treat all the notes as they would be toys. So they have got 7 toys and they can play with them however they want on the musical stage. That's why they start to compose. In normal process, if you study music composition, there is a lot of mathematics you need to understand. In this method, it's happening like that. Of course, children look for some, let's say, similar sounds or compatible sounds to the previous one on the piano. So there is a little bit of music harmony taught in this process. But generally speaking, it's another game for children. It's another, way to have fun. That's why children compose so quickly, even on the first lesson. That's why even 3 years old children can compose music and understand the notation, because there is no mathematics behind that. So the most important step, so-called conscious listening. Generally speaking, children like the music when they like the melody, or they like the music when it allows them to dance. If the music is a little bit more complicated, it's a little bit ambitious, or it's a classic music, then children don't understand that and they don't like that. So Bajkowska method introduced in the first step 4 music contrasts. I will explain this on a simple example. I met a 2.5 years old child who learned a little bit of music with Bajkowska method, and he was playing in his house, doing something, and he heard some music from a radio, and suddenly he stopped playing, he laid down on the carpet, and he pretended he's crying. But he just wanted to drop his mother's attention to that. Well, he was just 2.5 years old, and he still learned how to speak. He just wanted to express that he just understood that the music from a radio or TV is in a minor scale. Of course, it doesn't mean he knew what minor or major scales are, but he knew that music can be happy or sad. This is the first music contrast. Bajkowska method teaches children how to listen to music through different contrasts. That's why even the youngest children start to interpret the music through its language, through its structure. And this kind of interpretation normally happens only between 3 groups of people, between adult classic music connoisseurs, between opera fans and lovers of jazz music. This kind of people interpret this music this way, through its structure, through its beauty. With Bajkowska method and these 4 easy contrasts, even little children can do that. The next step are theater activities. I already told you about some theater activities, but Bajkowska published also some stagings for children, some music theater screenplays where children learn how to act as actors. And of course, this means that they learn that when there is a change in music, they have to stop performing something and start to perform something different. So all the acting is around classic music. Thanks to this simple technique, children learn how to listen to music and interpret that through its beauty, through its through emotions. Flexibility. You can use Bajkowska method in music appreciation, so in, let's say, kindergartens, or in so-called artistic education, where children practice a music instrument to become a musician someday. You can use this method as the only one, and you will have a really great results in piano education, or you can use this method with any other method, because Bajkowska method just speeds up the process of learning the notation, nothing else. So when you use this with, I don't know, Suzuki method or color strings, you will have just faster results, and the music education for children will be just easier. Just like that. If you have your own methods, your own techniques, you can use these methods with this Bajkowska method. Or if you would like to use Bajkowska method and then develop it, create something new, why not? We will be happy. All the methods are not for teachers, are for children. So if somebody will invent something new, thanks to this method, we will be happy. What you can do also, you can use this method in a yearly program. You can use it in an extended version, so for 3 years, but you can use it just for 3 months. The minimum amount of music lessons once per week are 3 months. But if you wish, you can use it just for one or few lessons. It's the biggest flexibility you can have. It just depends on your decision, nothing else. I have 2 gifts for you. At the beginning of April, we will publish the first ebook about Bajkowska method in English. So please just check iBook Store, Google Play, Amazon, and all other services with ebooks. Look for Bajkowska method. You will get this ebook for free. Within a month from now, or at the end of April, we will have a book with 20-30 children's compositions, among others, these compositions which you could listen to today. I believe this will be one of the first book in the world with music composed by children for other children. The first book, as far as I know, was Bajkowska book, published in 1992, but there were just 4 compositions. Here you will have compositions created by 3 years children up to 7 or 9 years children. And this book will be published in Polish and English, and every one of you who came here for my lecture and will share some contact details, some email with me after the lecture, will get this book for free. We will ship it to you for free. I believe the only way to show this method is to show it in practice. Any speech will not show you how effective and quick results you can get. That's why I'd be happy to find some teachers, some first kindergartens, primary schools or schools who will help me to translate this method into this market. This means that we shouldn't translate just the language, but also adapt this method to the British culture. I believe that only a little practice, some first pilot programs, can fully translate the method to make it so, let's say, easy to understand by children here in UK. I hope you can help me. I'll be happy to work with you. If you would like to know more about Bajkowska method, the official website will be bajkowska.org. And I apologize, I didn't have time to translate everything into English. So this is a really single-page website right now, but it will develop in time. If you have Polish friends or use Google Translation, you can check the Polish website, lidia.bajkowska.pl. And this is a huge website. There are a few hundred articles about that. Different, opinions from the best authorities in music education in Poland, etc., etc. We hope to translate that into English, but it will be a long process. So I apologize for that. If you'd like to contact me, my email address will be info@bajkowska.org. And to summarize, let me tell you something, what is the most amazing in this method. Absolutely. Normally, to start teach children to play from notes a music instrument, somebody needs to buy these instruments and give to children. So, Bajkowska method allows to introduce the professional music education at the really, let's say, basic step without music instruments owned by children. So this means you just need a single piano and a single teacher per 240 children. And all these children will play piano at the end of the year well enough to, let's say, pass exams to a music conservatory, to a music school, the real one. So from this point of view, this is the cheapest method on the world, I believe, because it is 240 times cheaper than any other method. Of course, after a year, children who like to continue music education, they should have a music instrument. They need to practice that. But what we can do today, we can encourage children, we can build a passion between children to music education absolutely for free. I believe this will be a huge revolution also in UK, and I believe that within a really short time all the children in United Kingdom will be able to play at least one instrument, reading the musical score, and they will compose at least a single music composition in their life. Thank you.